Welcome back to Dr. Supercoach, and in this video I'll be discussing the upcoming captaincy decisions for round 12 coming up. How's it going? It's JB from Dr. Supercoach, and if this is your first appointment, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming updates from us. Now today's episode is focused again on the upcoming captains for the week. If you missed last week's episode, Sicily and Stewart were the main vice captaincy options from me, and Bonzapelli the headlines the captaincy options. All three of those guys did fairly well. I did throw Jack Steele in there a little bit, who didn't do so well, but I think the hit ratio was pretty good again last week. So we're on a bit of a roll here. I understand I'm gathering a little bit of momentum and a little bit of a following, which makes me a bit more nervous about my captaincy decisions, knowing that there's such a high percentage of people now tuning into them. But we're going to get straight into this week. Obviously, being a bye week, you can vice captain any player all the way up until this Sunday game here, and then captain in the following one. If you just captain one of your bye players with the blue dots on field, you'll be able to do that throughout the entirety of the bye round. So that is very helpful, knowing that we can just vice captain and captain loophole throughout the entire week. Now, we're going to start off with Melbourne versus Carlton. Now, look, I don't mind Gawn as an option, really, but at the same time, I don't love it. I'd much prefer in this match, I think Petrarca is probably your only vice-captainable guy. If you do have him, I don't think the Carlton midfield is particularly strong at the moment. They're going to have a lot of injuries going into this one. Paddy Cripps being one of them. I think Petrarca is going to have the opportunity to sort of... I think he's going to have a bit of space for this one. And without delving too far into who I think might win or lose, if Melbourne are the front runners in this one, he could put together a really good score. So I don't mind Petrarca as a VC if you do have him. Otherwise, I'm not going for anyone else in that game, including Gawn with the Grundy split. Into Port versus Hawthorn. Again, if you don't like many of your options, I don't mind a Rosie or Butters. I think Hawthorn probably... they're prone to giving up the odd big score or two from a midfielder. I think the problem with that is Butters is almost entering tag territory with the amount of media attention that he's getting. We do know that Sam Mitchell has tagged in the past, especially when players are doing really well. Does that free up Connor Rosie? Does that mean the tag will be passed between the two of them? I'm not quite sure. It's really only a guess at this point that there might be attention going to one of them. But I would assume this is a fairly safe Rosie or Zach Butters vice captaincy game. We'll talk a little bit in a moment about why I'm a bit uneasy about some vice captains this week. Now, Nick Dacos against West Coast Eagles. I think a lot of people are expecting me to discuss this one. My concern with this is that the West Coast tag, O'Neill, does often start outside the stoppages and then come in to tag a midfielder, which he didn't apparently do last week against Zeret, which I missed. However, I think it's concerning if Dacos is starting in defence. I think O'Neill probably just starts forward and just tries to cull him a little bit. I'm not sure how many captainable games Dacos is going to have for the rest of the year. He might have used them all up already. I just imagine he gets attention for the rest of the season. The good news is that he's just a very, very good midfielder as well. So if they do throw him into that centre-backs attendance mix, which they have done with a tag in the past, I think he still goes pretty well. Against the West Coast Eagles, this game could be one of the bigger margins of the entire season. I do like Nick Dacos, and I probably like him the most out of his first three games, partially because he's very popular as well. But I think he's just got such a high ceiling that it's hard to pass up that vice captaincy. Now, the annoying thing about this round, in a bye round, is that we do have an overlapping fixture, only the one for the entire bye round, and it's the worst one in regards to captains and vice captains. So, Bontempelli, for starters, against an undermanned Geelong midfield, which we expect. Potentially Dangerfield comes back, but I don't think he quite will. Bontempelli against an undermanned Cats midfield, very good vice-captain / captaincy option. Tom Stewart against the Western Bulldogs team that historically or this season has given up huge scores to defenders. They do not care if you're playing loose or if you're an intercepting defender. They are going to score big scores, as we saw. It was last week. Maybe it wasn't last week. Maybe it was a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty sure they just had a big score kicked on them from a defender. But they do not mark defenders well at all, Western Bulldogs. So I expect Stewart to go really well as well. And then a lot of people are talking about Tim English against Geelong Rucks. Now, he does have a history against Geelong, which isn't good. I think that's just Stanley being pretty good at containing opposition ruckmen. Now, I don't believe Stanley is playing in this game. I think it's still Segler that is going. Geelong didn't draft anyone in the mid-season draft. So, in my opinion, I think he goes pretty well, English. I think there are 3 good vice-captain / captaincy options. I'll split them in a bit. The problem is I also think Dawson and Laird against the Gold Coast Suns at TO. Everyone knows I've been targeting that Gold Coast midfield, and I will continue to do so until Touk Miller comes back. I think that game, Keys is probably going to go to one of Rowell or Noah Anderson. If he does that, then the other 2 guys, Dawson and Laird, should have pretty well... whichever one is pretty much up against Noah Anderson, who says hello at the beginning of the game and then goes his separate way, will probably have a very good game. So I think even though it's at TO, I was very much okay with captaining Bont last week at TO. I think good, hard tackling, clean players like Laird and Dawson could both go really well in this matchup. I'm going to have to revisit this one. Let me get through the next couple and then I'll revisit in a summary. This one here, GWS versus Richmond. Taranto is becoming quickly one of the best scorers in the competition. He would have got 3 Brownlow votes for his performance against Port on the weekend. Against GWS without Josh Kelly, I like that matchup. I think it's pretty good. At Giants Stadium, on the flip side, Cogs and Green, both against Richmond, I don't mind either. So this one actually becomes another game of I don't mind any of them. So I'm gonna start rolling out guys because I'm saying a lot of names. Cornelio, I would rule out. He's too reliant on disposal efficiency. Tom Green, I will rule out, although I think this is the game he goes big. I will rule him out because he's been extremely inconsistent and he should have put that Geelong midfield to the sword last week, especially in a win. Taranto, I think, is absolutely okay as a captain or vice-captain option if you like Zeret in the next game. I think he's an absolutely fine option. There seems to be a lot of them. Zach Merritt against North Melbourne, the last game of the fixture this week. I think that's fine. North Melbourne haven't really been tagging. I think Zach Merritt just does his thing against North. Marvel Stadium, they probably win that one by a nice margin. Not a huge, 10-goal plus margin, but nice and comfortable. I think Zach Merritt probably does his thing there and is a very good captaincy option as well. Now, I haven't really ruled out a lot of players. So I think for me personally, I find it very difficult to pass up Nick Dacos as a VC. He's probably my leading VC at this point, followed by... It's a mentality thing when it comes to captaining defenders. It shouldn't be a hard sell to captain a Tom Stewart, but for some reason, it just doesn't feel as safe as captaining a midfielder, even though his role is actually probably better than some of the midfielders this year. So I definitely think Nick Dacos. I do like all the Sunday options between Taranto and Zach Merritt, but I don't think I can pass up on this little fixture on here. I think there's a chance O'Connor goes to Bontempelli, especially if their midfield is still undermanned. I think there's a chance someone pays attention, or even Blitzarves. I think there's equal chance that Tim English isn't tagged or anything like that. He's a ruckman, but I think there's a chance that they try to make his day tough. I don't think Tom Stewart is going to get anyone paying him close attention. So I like Stewart the most in this match. I like Dawson maybe the most of the night. but I don't own Dawson personally, so I'm getting myself out of that decision. I think Dacos into Stewart, or Stewart into Taranto / Merritt, Stewart into a Sunday, is probably my favourite combination so far. But I think definitely I'm involving Stewart, and whether I sniff out a tag in that Collingwood game and go with one of these two boys, or roll the Nick Dacos into Tom Stewart, I'm not quite sure. But I know for sure my plans will revolve around Tom Stewart at this stage. I think I need to be a bit more definitive. This might be the least definitive I've been in any video so far. I think I'm definitively telling people to choose between Dacos and Zach / TT. If you can make that decision yourself on which one you like the most, then you can decide which side of Stewart you want to be on. And as much as I like the Bulldogs, guys, I'm sure they're going to go well enough. I think Stewart has that combination of high ceiling, won't get attention, low floor. I think he's a very good VC option, and a good enough captaincy option. But it's just getting over my mentality of straight captaining defenders. But I think at this stage, if I had to lock myself into something, it would be Tom Stewart into Zach Merritt. I think would be my option right now. And I think if anyone ever questioned the authenticity of me making a decision pre-YouTube video and then coming into it with all these ideas, and I think that should be well and truly squashed right now, because that was a painful thought process that I just explained there. So Stewart into Zach Merritt is currently my favourite. I'm going to give Nick Dacos a tick. I'm going to give Rosie and Petrarca a tick if you're that way inclined, if you're impatient. But I would much rather wait for the Sunday night fixture to go with your favourite into TT or likely Zach Merritt, in my opinion. That is going to do it for today's episode of the Captain's Corner by myself, JB. If you do have any questions, if I did miss anyone, please comment down below. If I was too indecisive, if I do need to be a bit quicker with my decisions on the recording, also please feel free to yell at me down below. Make sure you do follow any of our other videos that we're posting. And if you do want to support us, there is the link to our Patreon and to our merch store down below. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next week.